Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm starting with the recording also, and nobody will annotate on the screen. Okay, now here we begin with a quiz on whatever we have covered so far. So let's begin. First question is, initially the prime objective of the East India Company was to
Expand trade.
Expand trade.
expand trade. This answer is correct. Let's go to the next question. When did the East India Company acquire a charter from England? Which year?
1600.
1600.
Shall I ask one at a time? You will answer, children. Everybody will not answer together. Okay, I will ask one of you to answer the next question. Okay, one by one, everybody will do. Okay. So next question is, this question should be answered by Aishwarya. Yes, Aishwarya, answer this question. What led to an intense conflict between the East India Company and the local leaders? Option A is effort to fortify settlements. Option B is carrying on profitable trade. Option C is both A and B and none of the above. Aishwarya will answer. Nobody else will answer. Aishwarya, can you hear me? Okay, Samyak, you answer.
Ma'am, both A and B.
Very good. It is both A and B. Effort to fortify the settlements, which mean they would try to acquire territories in India, and also because they wanted to make some forts there to keep their mercantile goods and raw material, and they needed to maintain an army also, and also most important was to carry out a profitable trade with India. So both A and B will be the answer. Next question is, Siraj-ud-Dawla was assassinated after his defeat at Kurukshetra, Buxar, Plassey or Bengal. I will ask that student, only that student will answer. Amay, can you answer, beta? Amay Ajgar. Amay, can you hear me? Okay. Piyush, you answer this question.
Kurukshetra.
Why Kurukshetra? We have covered two battles yesterday, the Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. So where does Kurukshetra come into picture? Okay, now Amay, Shweta, yes, Shweta Desai will answer. Which battle, Shweta? The answer is Plassey. Very true. In which year, Shweta? Which year?
Ma'am, may I tell?
Arnav will answer. Which year the Battle of Plassey was fought, which is also considered as one of the most important battle in which the British East India Company won.
1756.
Very good, Shweta. It is 1757. The first battle was 1757 at Plassey. Plassey was the name of the place. Okay, and I also told you about why the place got this name, about this beautiful flower called Palash, which is used to make the gulal, the holy gulal. Yeah. So Plassey was the place where the first where Siraj-ud-Dawla was defeated and assassinated, and also this battle was held in the year 1757. Okay. Now next question. When did the British annex Punjab? Okay, most of you won't be knowing this. Annexation, we will cover this part today. What was the policy of the Britishers to annex the Indian kingdom? So the correct answer is 1849. Okay, please note this down. Which year did the British annex Punjab? Was the year 1849. We'll cover this part today. Okay, next question is, who did the East India Company persuade to issue a farman granting it the right to duty-free trade? Bahadur Shah Zafar, Siraj-ud-Dawla, Mir Jafar or Aurangzeb? I will ask any one of you to answer. Yes, Rutuja, you answer this question. Rutuja. Whom did the East India Company persuade to issue a farman, a royal edict, to grant the right to duty-free trade? Rutuja, can you answer? She's not able to hear. Okay, now Tanmay, you answer this question. Tanmay? Yes? Aurangzeb, very good. It was Aurangzeb because he was a Mughal emperor at that time and he died in the year 1707. So before that, the British East India Company could please the emperor and get a royal farman issued granting it to do a duty-free trade. They need not pay any tax for taking out any goods from the Indian territory and bringing in any finished goods. Okay, next question. What did the charter mean? What was the meaning of this charter of the royal edict? The first option is no other trading group in England could compete with the East India Company. The second option is the company had to refrain from venturing across the oceans. Both A and B or neither A or B. Please raise your hands. I've explained this yesterday. Diksha. Diksha, you can answer this question. Which option? You're not audible, beta. Diksha, you have raised your hand, but you're not audible at all. Priyanshi Chaudhary, yes.
Ma'am, both A and B.
No, that is not true. Did the Farman say that the East India Company was not allowed to go to any other country? For example, apart from India, they were carrying out trade with China. So did the Farman apply it for China also?
No.
No. So what will be the option then, Priyanshi?
B.
Wrong answer. No other trading group in England could compete with the East India Company, the charter, the Royal Charter. Who issued the Royal Charter in the year 1600?
British.
The Queen issued a charter which meant that only the company, the East India Company. See, in England there were so many other trading companies. So one of them was the East India Company, and it was able to please the Queen of England in the year 1600 to issue a royal charter so that no other company should be allowed to trade with India. Okay, so the answer will be option A. No other trading group in England could compete with the East India Company. Okay, now we'll move on to the next quiz, children.
Yes.
Yesterday, I have explained how trade led to battles. We've seen a video also. Let's start with the question answers on yesterday's session. When did Alivardi Khan die? Which year? Please raise your hand. 6 participants are raising, 7 participants. Okay. Arya Paule, yes, answer the question. Please unmute and answer the question.
1756.
Very good. The correct answer is 1756. Alivardi Khan, who became the Nawab of Bengal? Anybody can answer this question. Siraj-ud-Daulah. Very good. Siraj-ud-Daulah. Nawab of Bengal, and in 1757, he died in the Battle of Plassey. He was assassinated. Very good. Okay, next. The first major victory for the British in India was at the Battle of Plassey, Buxar, Jhansi, none of the above. Okay. Plassey. Very good. It was the first major victory for the British in India, and they won this battle. Now we'll move on to the next question. Page is not. Okay, next question is, who led the British army against Siraj-ud-Daulah at Battle of Plassey? Murshid Quli Khan. Robert Clive. Robert Clive is the correct answer. He was the governor. He was made the governor later. In the year 1764, he became the governor of Bengal also. So at that time, he was a British official, and he was given the charge to lead a army to bring his forces to Plassey, where he defeated Sirajuddaula. So Robert Clive is the right answer. Gulal is obtained from Gulmohar, Neem, Tulsi, or Palash.
Palash.
Very good. After Ali Vardi Khan, Dash became the Nawab of Bengal.
Sirajuddaula.
Very good. A toy that one can move with strings is called a string doll, walker, puppet. Puppet. Why are we using this word puppet here? Can anybody tell me?
Ma'am, because British means sends of governor to puppet.
Because the British wanted all the puppet rulers so that they can make them do whatever they want, which was for their own interest of conducting commercial trade, profitable trade on the on one hand, and also acquiring territories in India, political domination also. So they wanted puppet rulers in India whom they can convince to do whatever they wanted. Okay, next question. The Battle of Plassey took place in
1757.
have answered all the questions. So now let me just start with where we left off. We have completed yesterday. We were able to complete how trade led to battles. What were the reasons behind the trade the trade interests leading to conflicts between the Nawabs of Bengal and the British East India Company. Okay, so now in the early 18th century, the conflict between the East India Company and the Nawabs intensified. The reason was that Murshid Quli Khan, after Aurangzeb's death, most of the rulers, the governors of various Mughal governors in various provinces in India, they declared themselves independent of the Mughal emperor and the Mughal rule. And eventually when they asserted power, they were in constant conflict with the East India Company. The reason was because Aurangzeb had issued a farman, a royal edict, that they can conduct duty-free trade. But now when these governors, they became independent rulers, they were not happy, because duty-free trade will mean loss of revenue for these governors. So that is why they were in constant conflict with the East India Company. Also, because they refused to they grant any concessions and demanded large tributes from the East India Company. Just like they themselves started feeling that they are rulers, they are the kings, so they should be granted some kind of tributes by the East India Company, and no concessions will be given to the East India Company. Another reason was that they did not allow, the main reason for the conflict was they were not allowing any extension of the British territory, leading to making forts in India, in the Indian territory, where they could keep their mercantile goods, and also they were not allowing them to mint any coins or to make any new currency to carry out the trade. Also, another reason of the conflict was that the Nawabs, they were accusing the East India Company of deceit, which meant that they were not paying them the revenue on time, they were not listening to them, they were sending letters directly to the Mughal emperor regarding allowing them for a duty-free trade. So this was one of the reasons why the Nawabs in various territories, in various provinces in India, they were feeling that the East India Company was deceitful. They were not agreeing to what they wanted them to do. Another reason was that the conflict, and finally, because of these reasons, what happened was this conflict led to the continuation of the Battle of Plassey in 1750. We've covered this in the previous class. Okay. Also, what were the event? How the event started was the battle between Sirajuddaula and East India Company happened in 1757. What was the reason of the defeat? Was that Mir Jafar, who was the chief commander in chief of Sirajuddaula, he betrayed the Nawab, and he joined hands with the
And the British offered him that he will become the Nawab of Bengal.
yeah, so that the British promised him that he will become the Nawab of Bengal, and that's why he was defeated. Okay, and at that time, Robert Clive sent troops after the fall of Calcutta. Okay, initially it started with the event when Sirajuddaula took some troops to Qasim Bazar with around 30,000 soldiers and attacked the factory, the British factory, and then eventually it led to a battle, a fierce battle between Robert Clive and Sirajuddaula, in which he was defeated with the help of Mir Jafar. Then I'll quickly come to this activity we have done yesterday, the Promise of Riches, on page 13, about Robert Clive, how he described that it was so easy to convince the Indian rulers to be make them follow their policy of divide and rule, and how it was so easy for them to convince the Indian rulers, just like they convinced Aurangzeb to issue a farman in their favor. Then we also here on page number 12 also one more activity is there about how the Nawab was complaining in the year 1933. You can refer to it later on. Let me just quickly cover this part, children. In the year when we are talking about Murshid Quli Khan, he was made the governor of Bengal in the year 1717 by the Mughal emperor, and in 1727 he died. Okay, after his death, his brother, his son, he became Shujauddin Muhammad Khan, became the Nawab of Bengal from 1727 to 1739, and after that his son Sarfaraz Khan became the governor of Bengal. But during all entire this period, all these Nawabs were very unhappy with the British, because many of the policies they were not in favor of, and because they were not allowing any kind of a duty-free trade. On page number 14, the Nawab complaints, here there is an excerpt, you can refer to it later on, okay, where they are complaining about how the officers of the British East India Company was not very pleasing to them, not well behaved with them, sending letters directly to the Mughal emperor. Okay, so you can refer to this later on, because we have to continue with the next section here. Then we have Ali Vardi Khan and Sirajuddaula after the in 1756, after the death of Sarfaraz Khan in the battle in 1740. Ali Vardi Khan, he was a favorite of the Mughal emperor. He became the Nawab of Bengal, and after him his son-in-law Sirajuddaula became the Nawab of Bengal. In a span of 1 year, he also died. Okay. Then we have here one picture of a plan of Battle of Plassey here. Okay, let me just share one screen with you here. I guess you're not able to see this. We have done this activity here. Here you have the Nawab complaints. Okay. This is Murshid Quli Khan, 1717 to 1727. Are you able to view this slide, children?
Yes, ma'am.
You have Shujauddin Muhammad, who became the Nawab, and then his son Sarfaraz Khan. Okay, and after that we have after the death of Sarfaraz Khan, Ali Vardi Khan became the Nawab of Bengal, and then his son-in-law Sirajuddaula became the Nawab of Bengal, and you already know how he died. Okay, in the Battle of Plassey. This is a plan of the Battle of Plassey, fought on 23rd June 1757 by Robert Clive against the Nawab Sirajuddaula of Bengal. So these pictures, these are rare pictures I have found and I wanted to share with you. Here then we have another picture where Robert Clive is meeting with Mir Jafar after the Battle of Plassey. This was a painting by Francis Hayman. Is it visible to all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then here we have Mir Jafar, 1757, from 1757 to 1760. After the Battle of Plassey, he was the Nawab of Bengal. Okay, he was a chief commander-in-chief of Sirajuddaula, and he was deceitful to him, and he joined hands with the British, and eventually Sirajuddaulah was assassinated and he became the governor from 1757 to 1760. Okay, then from 1760 to 1763, Mir Qasim was a son-in-law of Mir Jafar. So children, you already know why Mir Jafar was disposed of by the British. Again, even after
He was not allowing.
yes,
He was not allowing the duty-free trade.
right, he
Or
was
another reason.
also just like Sirajuddaulah, he also started behaving like a ruler of Bengal, and he also did not want the East India Company to conduct duty-free trade. So they disposed him off, and they again installed they appointed Mir Qasim, as who was a son-in-law of Mir Jafar, as the new governor from 1760 to 1763. But now Mir Qasim had the same problem, and again in the Battle of Buxar, wherein
son-in-law Mir Qasim. I'm confused.
okay, now if you have any queries, children, let me know. Any queries here?
Ma'am, Mir Qasim. Ma'am,
Qasim was
British
a son-in-law
rulers.
of Mir Jafar. It is not mentioned in your book. Okay. Mir
Ma'am, he
Qasim,
was also acting like Mir Jafar, means
yeah,
not
even
allowing
he
them
was
for
not happy with
duty-free
the
trade.
British. Again, he also did not want to allow duty-free trade. So Mir Qasim was very upset with the British again. So on 22nd of October 1764, another battle was fought, which is famously known as the Battle of Buxar. During this time, East India Company was led by Hector Munro. He was the chief commander at that time of the army, and against the combined army of Mir Qasim, the Nawab of Bengal, Shujauddaulah, the Nawab of Awadh, okay, and the Mughal king Shah Alam II. Okay, so they all three of the rulers, the Nawabs and the king, were together in this battle. And in this battle, please don't discuss among yourselves, just ask questions from me, okay? If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so in this battle also, the British East India Company won this battle again, and they again reappointed whom? Whom did they reappoint?
Mir Jafar.
They defeated Mir Qasim, and then again they reappointed the new Nawab, the last Nawab, Mir Jafar again. Very good. So again they appointed Mir Jafar as the governor, but then Mir Jafar, with him also the same problem was there. Mir Jafar was brought back as Nawab of Bengal though the Nawab continued to be responsible for the administration of provinces, the revenue from the land now went to the British. This was called the system of dual government, an unfortunate system that ruined the province of Bengal, Odisha, and Bihar. Okay, now the problem here was, again, why is it that they again appointed Mir Jafar? Was because the company officials were not that well equipped, and there was a problem of the language of administration. They did not know how to handle the internal affairs of administration. Initially, they did not know anything about how to administer the Indian population. So initially, they appointed resident Indians on important posts, so that gradually they will lead a control over the Indian territories. So that was one of the reasons why they reappointed Mir Jafar. But then again, Mir Jafar was also rebelling against them. So what happened was, just in the span of 1 year, because he died in the year 1765. At that time, earlier Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II also was with Mir Qasim waging a war against the East India Company. So what did they do? Now because the company was becoming more and more powerful, so this led to Shah Alam II appointing the company as the Diwan of the provinces of Bengal. And this happened in the Treaty of Allahabad in the year 1765. I hope this is clear to everyone. 1764 is the year of the Battle of Buxar. which was defeated by the Indians, by Mir Qasim. And in the year 1765, when Mir Jafar died, even after his appointment as the governor of Bengal, then finally the company was appointed as the Diwan of the provinces of Bengal in a treaty which was known as the Treaty of Allahabad. And the company now began to exploit the vast revenue resources of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, means they were given all the revenue, etc.,
Yes,
money,
yes.
etc. to the.
Very true, very true. Earlier, before that, they were not in complete control of the provinces of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. When we're talking about the Bengal province children, here we are talking about large territories of not only Bengal but Bihar and Odisha also, right from the time of Murshid Quli Khan. Okay, so now gradually they acquired, because Mir Jafar also had died, and because they started interfering in the internal affairs of the rulers also, they were becoming more and more powerful. So eventually they got the Diwani rights in the Treaty of Allahabad in the year 1765. So eventually the entire three territories came under the direct control of the East India Company. So this was a landmark decision which happened in favor of the East India Company during that time. I hope this much is clear to everyone. Why I have repeated this today is because all these two battles are very much important from your exam point of view. Okay? Any doubts here, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you can
Ma'am,
ask.
so
Yeah.
after the Treaty of Allahabad, so the British East India Company did not know the administration of India, so they appointed the local administrator.
Yes,
or,
yes, very
another.
true. I am coming to that. Three main policies were followed by the British. Initially, it was known as the Subsidiary Alliance. I will be coming to that. Doctrine of lapse and this paramountcy. Three policies were followed by the British to gradually acquire the complete control of the Indian territory, all the Indian kingdoms and territories. I will be coming to that also. Why I have stressed on these two battles is because this is the beginning of how they gradually acquired complete control, how they eventually became the rulers of the Indian subcontinent. Okay, here this picture is a very significant picture. Shah Alam II is conveying the grant of the Diwani to Lord Clive in which year? 1765, children. And let me tell you, 1764, when they won the Battle of Buxar, this was the year when Robert Clive became the new governor of the East India Company. And 1765, they got the Diwani of Bengal. Okay, here now what happened was eventually Robert Clive, he was able to amass a fortune in India and worth rupees 4 lakh, around 1,102 pounds he was able to acquire in those times, which was a huge amount of fortune that he acquired during those times, especially after the Battle of Plassey. Let me tell you, children, at the time when he came to India, he came to India in the year 1743 just at the mere age of 18. But eventually he became very, very rich just by staying in India. Okay, and when he was appointed as the governor of Bengal in 1764, he was asked by the Queen, by the Parliament in England, to control the corruption in the administration in the Indian territory. This was his task initially when he was appointed as the governor of Bengal. But eventually he himself was cross-examined in the year 1772 by the British Parliament because they were suspicious that he was amassing huge wealth, and he had a vast wealth in India. And although he was...
That means he was a corrupted officer.
He was corrupt, of course. That was one of the reasons why he became so rich. But then the British Parliament acquitted him. Acquitted means that he was set free. It was not said that he had committed any kind of a corruption. He was set free, but then also in the year 1774 he committed suicide. because he was cross-examined by the British Parliament. So he felt that he has not done it. He wanted to prove that he has not done any corruption. But even though he was acquitted, which means no trial for him further, but then also he committed suicide in the year 1774. Okay, so he was the only governor in Indian history who had amassed such a huge wealth and fortune in India. He's the only governor who in India who was able to amass such a big fortune in India. Okay, and after him also many British officials came to India and they were appointed. Although they were not corrupt, they also died here because of disease and because of war. But it doesn't mean that all of them were corrupt. Many of them were very sincere also. But what was happening in England was, as you will be studying in your upcoming classes, will be that they had a feudal system in Europe, wherein the church was most important, and most of the middle class people, the educated people, they belong to the third category of the third estate, and they were not a very rich class. The merchants also were not a very rich class. But eventually, after the Industrial Revolution, when they started going places and acquiring territories in different countries, they became very, very rich. Just like in the case of these people who came from England and settled in India, they came here just like Robert Clive, they also wanted to become rich. So what happened was, those who managed to return to England with wealth, they led, when they amassed huge wealth, they were able to acquire huge wealth from India, they used to go back to England, and they used to lead a very flashy life, and they flaunted their riches. So now suddenly they had become very, very rich after they had been to India and coming back to England. So these people were known as the Naboobs, or the Nawabs of India, and also they were considered as social climbers in the British society. Many a times they were made fun of in many English plays and cartoons also. Why? Because suddenly these merchants were becoming very, very rich. So in case if you get this question on who were the English Naboobs or the Nawabs, so these were the British officials who aspired to come to India to become rich, just like Robert Clive. I hope this part is clear to everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
Any question?
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, how did Robert Clive see himself? Let me tell you, children, I'll just quickly read 2 sentences from what he has written. Before, when he was cross-examined by the British Parliament. When he was in his hearing in front of the committee in the Parliament, he declared something. Let me read that out for you. He said that, consider the situation in which the victory at Plassey had placed me. A great prince was dependent on my pleasure. An opulent city lay at my mercy. Its richest bankers bid against each other for my smiles. I walked through walls which were thrown open to me alone, piled on either hand with gold and jewels. Mr. Chairman, at this moment, I stand astonished at my moderation. What he's trying to convey here is that it is not my mistake that I was able to amass such a huge wealth and fortune. What he's trying to convey is that the Indians themselves were with open arms, were welcoming him and giving them gold and diamond and jewelry. They themselves were giving him all, or granting them all these gifts. So they cannot accuse him of amassing huge wealth and fortune by doing corruption in the administration. So here, this is what he tried to say when he was tried in front of the Parliament in England with the charges of corruption in administration in India. Okay, so this was one example. You can read it on page 15. It's mentioned here. Any doubts here, children? You have any doubts here? Okay, shall we continue with what was the process of annexation of the Indian states right from the year 1757 and 1857? Children, in this section, we will be covering the subsidiary alliance and the doctrine of lapse, and also the law of paramountcy, wherein the British, the claim of paramountcy, where the British felt that they are the supreme, they are the more civilized society as compared to the Indians. So these three main important things we are going to cover in the upcoming section. And also here how the process of annexation of Indian states happened gradually. It was a slow process. It was a gradual process here. So what happened was, earlier, instead of the military attacks, they did not wage any wars initially. The East India Company did not wage any wars against the rulers. Their initial purpose was to
Protect.
was to conduct trade and commercial ties with the rulers. They did not came here to become rulers, but eventually when they became powerful, they used variety of political, economic and diplomatic methods to extend their influence before annexing any Indian kingdom. I hope you understand the meaning of the word annexation. Annexation means you take that territory under your control, just like it happened in Bengal. The provinces of Bengal,
Awadh.
annexation means now it came under, it joined the territory of the East India Company. Okay. Also, they initially appointed resident Indians, political and commercial, to serve the interests of the company. The reason was a language barrier, of course. They did not understand the Indian population and the culture. So initially, they appointed the Indian residents because they understood their people. So it was very difficult initially for them to acquire control and immediately start ruling the Indian territories. Okay, and gradually they started interfering. Slowly they started interfering in affairs of the Indian states and the kingdoms. How they started interfering? Now they started deciding who will be the successor of the throne once the king is has died. Also, okay, and also they appointed many important administrative posts who should be appointed. They started interfering in a slow and a gradual manner, and this is how eventually they were able to acquire control over the Indian territories. One of them, the famous, one of the most important of these policies was the subsidiary alliance. Okay, children, we will continue in the next class tomorrow. Tomorrow also we have another class at 7:45 p.m. I will cover all the three: subsidiary alliance, the doctrine of lapse, and also the